Chapter 20. Nicola. Philip's voice broke on the word. He stayed where he was, the rain driving his tunic against his perfect form. And I had the sense that while every part of his image was planned and carefully executed, right now he couldn't care less about any of it. I said nothing. I didn't know what to say. This man had been my lover. He was staring at me like his heart was breaking, and I remembered nothing of him save that he had sat at my right hand at banquets and whispered in my ear. He could see that. His face twisted. Do you not remember me? Truly. I shook my head, a jerky little motion. I felt wrong in my own skin suddenly. He knew more about me than I did. What did they do to her? He looked at Esh as he strode forward. Who took her, and why? What did they do to her? He reached out to pull me close to his chest, and I stepped back. It was reflex, nothing more. I didn't want him to touch me, even if I couldn't have put into words why. Perhaps it was too strange to have hands that knew my shape sliding over me, while he was nothing but a stranger to me right now. But he froze when I moved away from him. His eyes narrowed. You will remember, he told me carefully, as if he were explaining something to a child. We were everything to one another. I never forgot you, and when Esh takes the veils from your memory, you will remember me, and be the woman you were before. The unspoken words hung heavy in the air. They were so obvious to him that he didn't even feel the need to say them. My fingers clenched unconsciously. I don't want to be her, but I was afraid to say it. I didn't have my magic. I didn't have any recourse if he wanted to force me to leave with him. Esh, however, was in no mood to let me leave with him. She needs rest, she said bluntly, and to remember everything slowly. She needs me, Philip said instantly. She was brought here by a druid, a hunter. She needs someone to protect her. Tarek is hunting her. The druid will only turn her over to him. I made a strangled noise, and froze when both of them looked sharply at me. Tarek is alive. Philip's face took on a surly cast. He's powerful. He was always powerful. You couldn't defeat him. I jerked back. I hadn't meant anything by those words beyond my own surprise. I had simply assumed that if Philip was here. Tarek was dead. She is protected by me, Esh said simply. When her memories are recovered, then she can contact you and return to the world. Until then, I will stay, Philip finished. She needs me. He repeated the words almost reverently. I don't want you here, I said flatly. What? He looked at me like he wasn't sure what he was hearing. I wasn't sure what had possessed me to be that direct. Esh had been sending him away gently, seeming to promise everything he wanted without actually promising anything. It had all been in hand, and then I had gone and been blunt about it. I just need time. The words were weak. I hated this, pretending to be smaller than I was, but if he got angry, I need to remember, that's all. And you'll want me here when you do, he assured me. He was smiling again. You'll want to return with me, to see all the people who have remembered you all these years. There would be no persuading him, that much was clear. Over the centuries, I had become a talisman to him, not a human being. And I hadn't even been a very good human being to start with. I don't want you here. I said the words clearly. I drew myself up. I have spent almost 700 years not knowing who I was, and not being able to work magic. I don't know much yet about who I was back then, but I do know what I did, and I know I never want to do anything like that again. Philip Allaire stared at me, open-mouthed. But the monarchists need you, he said blankly. I'm not a monarchist, I gritted out. I'm not a separatist. I'm not a Unitarian. Right now, I'm not Nicola Beaumont. I haven't been her for centuries. And by the way, since you've held it all together and started another Black Plague plan in my absence, apparently you don't need me. You can murder millions of people just fine on your own. Esh gave a small sound that might have been a snort, and Philip rounded on her. What did you do to her? He sounded furious. What did the druid have you do? Young man, this is my house. Esh's eyes narrowed slightly and the wind rose to an ungodly shriek. I will not be accused of mind control in my own house just because you're having a lover's spat. Nicola was my student once, and God's willing, I will train her better this time. But that is between me and her. You must go. No. The word was wild. Philip looked between the two of us, shaking his head. No, Nicola. He pulled something from beneath his cloak. Nicola, look at this. Do you remember this? I froze. Half of me wanted to shrink away from the orb in his hand, and half of me thought it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Inside the glassy depths, color swirled, purple, blue, black, green. It called to me. My magic sang at the sight of it. It took us 500 years to rebuild it, Philip whispered. We knew only that it was possible, because you had done it. He smiled ruefully. It's not as good as you could have done, but it's still beautiful, is it not? Fingers trembling, I reached out for it. I could hear a high, sweet note drawing me closer. What does it do? It kills cities. Esh's voice was the storm, the wind, the waves, the salt spray. It is an unimaginable evil. That orb holds the death of millions. You made some like it, once. You sent them to Venice and Genoa and Paris, ready to spread their poison as soon as they were shown to the world. I yanked my hand back. It is your legacy. Philip held it out. Nicola, don't listen to her. You were going to free us. We live in fear of them. They have become what we were afraid of. They see everything. They have eyes beyond this world, staring down at us every day. Our children, the next generation of sorcerers, are abducted from us. They disappear and they never come back. We cannot hide for much longer. This needs to be done, and it needs to be done now. I backed away from him. It all made sense, a terrible sort of sense. Memories were struggling free in my mind, and I gave a cry of pain as the spells began to break. I had said words like this once. I had warned people that this day was coming, and Phillips's words made a terrible sort of sense. I didn't want it to. I wanted, desperately, to reject all of it. But it did make sense. I could feel anger twisting in my heart. They'd take me. They'd take Damon. They'd take the boy he'd saved and brought to the Academ, and they'd destroy us in their quest to turn us into weapons. They'd do anything they could to make more of us, like little slaves. Them, humans with no power, humans who could not look at power without wanting to have it for themselves. It was an old hatred, and it had made a well-worn path in my soul. It was too easy a solution, and I knew it, but I couldn't take my eyes from the orb. I could fix everything. I'd had that power in my hands. I might not remember the moment, but I knew it was true. And when you had that kind of power, get out. I don't know how I managed to say the words, but I did. I shook my head at Philip. Get out. Take that away from me and go. Nicola, go. If I had it, I would use it. I stumbled back over the rocks in my panic. I was shuddering with cold, but I couldn't feel it. I don't want you here. Go. No. He strode across the rocks after me, his face set. He was reaching for my arm when the wall of water rose between us. She is not yours. Sea and Sky spoke as one. You are not welcome here, Philip Allaire. Give up the orb, and leave. His power rose around him, a crackle of white lightning. Thunder boomed, and I did not know which one of them it was. This is our future. He held the orb out to Ash as he screamed the words. She was cloaked in power. Shadows played over her features like the ripples of light and shadow cast by water. Clouds swirled around her, and the wind lifted her hair. She twitched her fingers, and the wind made to tear the orb from his grasp. Lightning sprang up between them as he yelled his fury at her. I will not give it to you. Waves slammed against the island, knocking me to the rocks and taking the breath from my lungs. I spat seawater as I struggled to my feet. You were not meant to wield such power. Her words echoed in my very bones. I will begin what she started. Philip stared into the heart of the storm that surrounded Esh. If you have brainwashed her so she will not use it, I will. He gave me a wild look as he backed toward the edge of the cliff. And when you remember what you are, who you are, come back to me, Nicola. The wall of water that rose behind him was like a mountain. It hung in the air, deep dark, shadows in its depths, and I knew a moment of pure terror. When I cast a look at Esh, even she was shaking with the effort of it. It dwarfed anything I had ever seen, be it building or mountain. It loomed over Philip as he stared up at it. Give up the orb, or you die here. Fine. He turned, and there was a terrible smile playing on his lips. Then take it. He threw it, crackling with energy, at the heart of Esh's storm, and vanished into thin air the next moment.